What's up, guys? Today we're going to be looking at how to rip 3D models out of Star Wars Battlefront 3. This is version r70217, and we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. So there's some software you need before we do this. I'm going to have a link to everything down below. One of the best things I'm going to be using today is 3D Model Researcher. This is version 2.8. Version's not going to matter, but basically this is going to allow us to go into the memory of the file and specifically select what we're going to be taking out and putting into a 3D model. So the other thing I have here is Cheat Engine, and we're simply using that for file searching, but you don't have to use it, but it sure would make your life a lot easier if you did use it. Other than that, at the end of the video, I'm going to show you how you can use a program that I wrote, RaxRipper, and that program is going to do everything we're doing in Model Researcher and even a little bit more than that. And it'll do it all in just a few minutes too, where this could take us a few hours. But let's go ahead and rip a 3D model with this software. So the first thing we're going to do is go into Model Researcher, and we're going to do Open File. So I click that, and it brings me up here, and I'm going to go ahead and navigate to wherever my maps are. So for me, it's going to be in this ob.184 BG. We're going to look at the damaged Star Destroyer interior today. So we're in this folder. We're going to go ahead and grab ob.rax. That's every model you could ever grab is going to be right here. So we open that, and we're going to go ahead and go to the Hex View and look at what we got. So look in here, we got a whole lot going on in our Hex View, but don't be too scared by this. A lot of this zeros, ones, Fs, As. Most of it's not important, and I'm going to show you how we can find exactly what we're looking for without digging too much. So using Cheat Engine, I'm going to go ahead and open the same file as well, and I should already have it open, but I'm just going to go ahead and open it again. And then I'm going to go ahead and search for a string, and we're going to do capital F-A-C-E, face. It's the first thing we're going to look for, and once we get face, it's going to tell us everything else that we need to know. So first scan, we can see we have a couple different, actually 422 different instances of face in this file. So if we pay attention here to the memory locations, they're all kind of grouped together. So we go down right here, there's a big shift in the memory, and this would be the end of a model. This will be the start of another model. Go down a little bit further, there's another shift right here. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab this third model and see what it gets us. So if I go ahead and I can browse this memory if I wanted to in Cheat Engine, and you can kind of see what we've got going on here. Oop, scroll too far. We're going to see this here in a sec. Just one instance of face. Looks like that's not necessarily the one we wanted, but let's go ahead and browse this other one. And there we go. This is what I'm looking for. We have a huge chunk of this face, all back to back to back. So this is what I'm looking for. This is the perfect region for grabbing a model. Let's go ahead and I'll right click on that, or you can visually just mentally copy and paste. I'm going to click copy selected address, and let's come over to 3D Model Researcher. Right here in this corner I have a place where I can insert addresses, and I'll paste my address, hit enter, and it takes us down to that address. So looking here at all these different faces, the first thing I'm going to do is come down here to, we have a big blank line after the faces, and then we start right here with doing actual face points. So what we're looking at right here is Triangulated Faces. So it'll grab these things in groups of 6. If I take this address, copy, and paste it into my faces, we're going to go ahead and set this to a short, and leave the rest of it just like this. If I go ahead and look at one face, you can see it grabs 6 bytes. These are bytes of data. But what we really have is 2 bytes to make up point A, 2 bytes to make up point B, and 2 bytes to make up point C. And together this makes up a 3-point triangle. So what can I do from here? This is actually a lot of faces here. This is a really big mesh. So I'm going to come back over to Cheat Engine, and I'm actually going to cheat a little bit. So let's see here. I'm going to search for this word, LDIR, capital LDIR. Do a new scan. And let's look at our memory locations. Where are we at? We're at 25, 1C, D8. And if I look here, I have 25, 10, 80. Looking deep into this, I'm actually going to be off. And the reason for this is that vertices always come after the faces, and there's plenty of faces for us to be picking from. So I'm actually going to go for the next memory location, which is going to be out at 26BB. So I copy that address, and I'm going to come back to Model Researcher. When we paste this in here, it takes us to that address. Okay, so we have this little grouping of data right here. This is important. We're going to come back to it later. But for now, let's scroll up and find the end of our faces. Right here, I can see something happening. So we have a significant shift in the way that the memory is displayed. So notice here how we have this sort of A, B, C, D alphabet situation going on. If we scroll down all the way and we look right here, we have 3F80 3 times. There's another 3F80 and another 3F80 block. So we're going to go ahead and bring in most of the memory all the way up to this point. So if I go over to faces, and I'll set this to some crazy number. Let's say 25,000. And immediately we've already passed it. So I'll go down quite a bit, 15,000. We're not there yet. Let's try 20,000 right in the middle. We passed it, and we're just going to keep trying to get closer to it. 18,000. So at 16,500, I got lucky, and I'm really close to it. From here, I can go ahead and hold down the down arrow key, and it'll back up until I get to where I want it to. So if I go back, it actually shows me. We don't want to pull in any of these 3F80s. So I have 4 bytes here that don't get used, and then I start this 3F80s block. So this right here, this is the last face. This is actually the last point of the last face. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that my byte order is set to big endian. That's important, super important. And then I'm going to set my padding to 8 on the vertices, and we're about to get the vertices. So the first thing I'm going to do is scroll down, and let's get the memory location for where the vertices begin. So if I keep scrolling down, this is LDIR. We searched for this in Cheat Engine. This connects my faces to these vertices right here. And specifically, if I'm going to point something out, we have 0118, and that coming after LDIR shows that this is a mesh that we're going to use. So this is a big key right here. If you start getting to more complex files and you're not sure why you don't understand the shape you're seeing, this 0118 is a big key in viewing this mesh as an object you'd actually use. 2 more things I'm going to look for. So I have UV and I have UV1. UV is going to be the UVs that we need to pull. And if I look here, and I have 0103 and 0109. The difference between these two is going to be a float and a byte, or a float and a short. This is super important because a float is 4 bytes and a short is 2 bytes. And this may not mean anything to you later, but when we start to look at the layout of the memory, we need to know how far our memory is going to be offset so that we grab only everything for the first UV, and then afterward we might grab everything for the second UV. But for now we're only going to grab the first UV, and I'm going to go ahead and take this point here. See, we have a couple lines of zeros, and this right here marks my first vertice. So I'll take this address, I'll copy it, and I'll paste it into vertices. And then now I'm going to go ahead and cheat a little. I should be able to go down to the bottom of the vertices, and there should be an obvious break between vertices and UVs, but I'm going to cheat a little because I know that Model Researcher will give me all the right answers. So if I go ahead and hit render right now, it's going to throw me an error. It's going to say you don't have enough vertices for the amount that the faces call for. The faces are calling for 23,583 faces. And I have selected 0 vertices. So if I go ahead and take this number, 23,583, and I'm going to go ahead and add 1 to it just for a little bit of padding, so we have extra space on the end. I'm going to hit render. And right now I can already go to my 3D space, and I have the option to view the home point, or I can click this little box right here to view everything collectively on the screen. I'm going to click this button, and right there it takes me to our model. Pretty cool about this. This is kind of hard to do with the touchpad, so if you have a mouse, I recommend using the mouse. But holding Control, we can zoom in and out. Shift, we can go up and down. And then without holding down any keys, we can just move around the scene. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down a little and move us into the room. And check this out, guys. Let's recenter the view, and let's just zoom in, and we'll sit in the center of the room. Check this out, guys. We are looking at the Star Destroyer Damaged Interior. This is a map that you cannot play in R7. Simply because of its collider issues, you would fall straight through the map at spawning. But check this out. This is a map we've never seen before in the game, and we have a model of it sitting right here in front of us. Go ahead and I can choose to turn off the vertices in my display. Hit render again. Gets rid of all these red dots. If I wanted to get cool with it, I can turn off the faces, and we can actually see all the vertices that make up this room. All 23,500 vertices. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll just keep looking at the faces because it looks nicer. And from here, I'm going to go ahead and look at my UVs. Let's go ahead and pull the UVs. So if we look right here, it gives me the address that the vertices end at. UVs come immediately after the vertices in memory. So looking at 2D EE80, I type that in here, and I hit enter, and it takes me straight to that memory address. And you can see our vertices end right here. And now we start over here. You can see a different trend in the data. So what I'm going to do, I can already tell you by seeing this here, I need to skip this specifically. So remember how I said we have a short and a float. A float is a basically floating point data type, anything that is, say, 1.1. A short is going to be a smaller data type that only uses 4 bytes, or my bad, 2 bytes, but it's actually going to show up as an integer. So you'll have 11, but when you would take this down and put it into something usable, you would end up with 1.1. So they do some math on the background to turn a short into something usable for the UVs. Free Radical did this to save space and save some memory. They sacrificed precision on the UVs, and it wasn't really necessary for us to have very precise UVs because it is just simply dividing up detail on the textures. So let's go ahead and grab these UVs. If I knew I was grabbing a 4-byte float, then first I would go ahead and set this to a short signed. But since Oops, let's go back. Let's go ahead and look at our UVs. Let's go ahead and copy our memory address for the UVs. I've already selected it right here, and then that brings me up to it. You can see it changing up there. But I'll go ahead and grab the first byte for my UVs. We're skipping this block here. I can already tell you that this isn't important, but in other cases we might start at the first byte. Let's go ahead and grab that byte, copy the address, paste it into UVs, and then there's something very important you have to do here. How do we get our number of UVs? Well, we have 23,584 vertices. So we're going to go ahead and copy that number, and we're going to paste it, and then we're going to do one last thing. Make sure we have UVs ticked up here. That way it shows us our UVs. And then we have to set our padding. So we're going to go ahead and set this until we find the right alignment of data. And now that I've aligned all the data, I've selected this chunk of bytes. Remember earlier we had 4 bytes. We have the first point and 4 bytes for the second point, and then we had shorts. So we have 2 bytes to make up the first point and 2 to make up the second. And then we have an irrelevant column of data over here. But I can tell you right now, if I go ahead and go over to the texture tab and I hit view UVs, this will work. These are the UVs for this model. I'm going to go ahead and view this by polygons, and we can kind of see that this makes sense. There are different ways that you could try to pull UVs and it wouldn't make any sense. In this case here, this appears to be broken. If we look at the points, they're just kind of a mess. Nothing worth seeing. I'm going to go ahead and just for the fun of it, let's look at the other UV that is available for us. We're going to go ahead and shift this over to that far right column, right there. We're on the far right 4 bytes. And let's increase our padding so that everything lines up. Come back over to texture and click view UVs. And this is what this UV was intended to look like. This is the entire model laid flat. So other than that, I know I want to go back and use the other 4, so I'll shift it back over, or use the other 8. And from here, I can go ahead and click File and save OBJ. It's that simple. You choose location, you can name your file, and it's simple as that. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how we can do this for all of the models on this map in under 2 minutes without having to do any searching or any work at all. So let's go ahead and click on the Mesh tab, and I'm going to go to my folder for this map. So right here I have the ob.rax that we are viewing, and I'm going to go ahead and take this program I made. This will be linked down in the description for anybody to use. These models are totally free to you, but they are not yours to sell. They are not your property, and you cannot make money off of them, trade them, or work on them for your own purposes. They are simply for entertainment and educational purposes only. So I'm going to put this program in the same place as my ob.rax, and I'm going to open it. It's that simple. We're going to let this thing do some work. It might take a few minutes, but it's going to do all of the work for us in just a few minutes. So go ahead and grab a drink, sit down, and watch it with me. Alright, so now that it has finished ripping all the models, we end up with a whole bunch of OBJs in our folder. Specifically, Model 3 we're going to take a look at. One of the things this program outputs is ob.txt. And if we open that, we should find all of the information we need for 3D Model Researcher. Specifically, looking at Model 3, this program found faces beginning at 25-2020, which is correct. It found that faces are ending at 26A20C, and again, this is correct. It found that there were 16,466 faces. You saw me get all of this by hand, but the program has it all correct. Let's go look at UVs. And UVs again, they are beginning offset by 4, and they are ending just a little bit early. But we found that pattern in there that was super important. We're looking at this 7F pattern, and we have to skip over that. But other than that, if we were to open this OBJ model as it was exported by RaxRipper, you would find the exact 3D model with its UVs intact, just as we ripped it in 3D Model Researcher. So, pretty cool little program right there. Be sure to use it responsibly, but other than that, have fun with it. Just use it as best you can. Not all models can be ripped. Some models do not follow the pattern that they should to simply exist or be a model. So you may have to use 3D Model Researcher again on your own to take some of these files and get the models out of them. But that's all I got for now, guys. Be sure to download these programs and use them responsibly. Thanks.